Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing Alien Romulus. This was directed by Fede Alvarez. We are returning to the iconic Alien franchise yet again, the first time since, I believe, Alien Resurrection in 2017. Well, with this one, it seems that they're trying to do a bit of a reset. The film is supposed to take place between the first film and the second film, Alien and Aliens. Look, the originals are the originals. They, defined an entire generation of action, adventure, sci-fi, and horror sci-fi. Eventually, they do try to revamp the series. They try to, give it almost an entirely new identity, and they bring back Ridley Scott, and he's directing, the prequel Prometheus, which traded that more rusty, working-class, industrial, clunky aesthetic that you might have seen in the original films for something that is a lot more sleek and elegant and lofty, cerebral. I can admire the attempt of them trying to go into that more bold, existential territory rather than the more accessible, but it just didn't work out, I think, because I feel like they lost the identity of Alien somewhere along the line. And also just so many of these lofty ideas, they're so poorly executed and they're just stupid. So it's very hard to take the film seriously, even though it's clearly well made. I think the trajectory of Alien is somewhat reminiscent of Star Wars, just in the sense that, yeah, you've got a really groundbreaking, original film that came out in the 1970s, but it gets so successful that eventually we are able to veer into a prequel land, which is going to be a departure from the originals stylistically, and that ultimately falls flat for a lot of people. But then we get to the Disney prequels, and in the case of, a movie like Force Awakens, it's rehashing that initial Star Wars story, but of course dressed in all of those warm, nostalgic textures that are very Star Wars. In the case of Romulus, yes, it is a rehashing of, a lot of familiar elements that we know, that we've seen in other Alien films ad nauseum, honestly, to the point where I feel like we've stretched the tension about as far as it can go in this particular series. Maybe that's more a glaring flaw with the film when you look at it with perspective, but I do think compared to like The Force Awakens as an example, this film has a lot more craft. It's, I think, a lot more well thought through. I do think this is the strongest Alien film that has come out in the 21st century. Of course, that's a very low bar when you think about it, but yeah, I think not only does it remember what is integral to the original film's success, but it also understands fundamentally what makes a strong horror film or a strong action adventure film, where you have a crew of young people on a ship stuck in space with, yes, killer aliens. It was clear just in the opening credits, the sound design, the score, and just kind of that analog look to the font and everything. Yes, it's trying to be very nostalgic. And the film is no longer sleek in the way that it was. It is remembering the proletariat. It's about the working class. And you have, a group of young kids that are working for this industry, one that is oppressive. It has destroyed their families, their parents, and it's likely going to kill them. So they are just trying to get out of this situation and hope for a better future. Very simple concept, it always has been, and it's clear they're trying to recapture the intimacy. They're trying to create relationships, that ensemble rapport. But what I find so interesting about this film, and this is, what sets it apart from a movie like Force Awakens, we'll say, is that this one is able to, break away from that initial accessibility that we got from the original two films. And we start to shift into more cerebral ideas that deal with, like human flaws, human frailty versus artificial intelligence. I like that they're trying to probe a lot of these thoughtful ideas, but every time they entice us forward, it's like they pull back, and it's like, oh, come on, let's try to take this further. Let's see where this can take our characters. If they could have been more bold with it, I think it would have allowed for more creativity, and then, we could open up the possibility for, future installments. I think Alvarez understands that if you're going to strip everything back to, its core, that those elements have to be incredibly strong and incredibly timeless. Good setup, really strong set pieces, and a strong understanding of how to create basic tension. And I think that he really does. I was never once bored in this entire film, and let me tell you, I cannot say that about a lot of movies this year. But even though it's solid, there's a lot of things that I think that could have been stronger. The cast, for example, at times I think that the casting is right on the money, and at other times it feels like the personalities are a little bit lean and forgettable. The best performance in the film by far was David Johnson, who plays Andy, who's like this, like a robot, like a synthetic brother for the main character, who is played by Kaylee Spaney. This is a very tough part because he's essentially playing two roles, or sort of playing two roles, and you'll understand what I mean when you see the film. But yes, I think he totally nailed both aspects. His face is very distinct. It's an unusual face, but it's the kind of face where it can stretch in all kinds of different directions depending on, what you're given. He can play childlike and soft where you really buy into his innocence, which is very important at the beginning of the film. Yet there is something there. There is a thread that if you subtly pull it, it can twist into something that is very cold and very dark, very scary. In the case of the main character, again, played by Kaylee Spaney, I think she also did a really beautiful job. I question whether she has the fortitude as an actress to be able to take on a wide range of characters, just because I kind of found her more dramatic sections of Priscilla to be unconvincing, but here you don't really have to worry about that. Here she's not embodying somebody, she's an audience surrogate, and I think of all three of the movies that I have seen her in the last year, I think this is by far her best performance. You buy into every emotion that flashes across her face, you know, you also buy into her softness and her naivete, and yet she's still grounded and likable. I do wish that some of the other performances were cast with the same kind of, you know, gravitas in mind. But if you build these relationships early on where they are convincing, when you realize that some sacrifices are going to have to be made later, it's devastating. And it's very emotional in the film as it stands, but I think it could have gone even further. When in a confined space, when you start to question who you can actually trust, that is when the paranoia starts to set in. And that's, you know, what we get from the character of Andy. And we start to wonder, how much freedom do we actually have here? Since it seems one attempt to try to break from one industry just leads into the stronghold of another. But what really made me happy about this movie is just the visuals. I mean, the way the aliens look in this film is amazing. I mean, honestly, I think they look better than they've ever looked. Here, it's like they understand that some practical effects don't even look real, and yet they are very nostalgic to us. And there is somehow, even in that, there is a stickiness. Any kind of jerky movements you might get from like a puppet or like a rubbery body dummy or something like that in a movie, I often find that so much more impactful than, you know, just an overloading of computer effects. As long as I have been alive, they have never been able to take just pure CGI and make it feel tangible. It always feels just too sleek. But here, they did it. I love the slime in this movie, the body fluids in the film. It's like when you see a creature that is about to like burst from somebody's chest, it's like you can hear the sternum tightening and that rib cage, it's creaking, and then it just, it bursts. It's beautiful work, and I think it is worthy of your time to experience. There is a sequence in the third act of the film that I thought was fantastic. It's like where our heroes are floating in this anti-gravity section and they're dodging all of this acid, and yeah, it's great. Gorgeous shots that are often employed at the right moment so you feel the impact of every major story beat. They do a fantastic job of lighting, you know, like our characters' faces, especially when they are in fear. It's like their eyes are bulging and just like the wetness in the hair and the sweat. I found it very satisfying just as a piece of entertainment. When I look closer at it, of course, I have some problems with it. While the more provocative ideas are not sticking the landing, I still think there's also too much that is recycled from the past, too much that we've already seen in previous Alien films. When you reuse them so often with so little variation, it just, yeah, it loses the tension. It's like when a main character in the first act of the movie claims that she's pregnant, I mean, you already know what's going to happen. The third act is basically given to us right there. We have too many pregnancies gone wrong in Alien movies, so if we had found maybe a more creative way of exploring that, you know, we're bridging the nostalgia with something a little more fresh, might have been more interesting. I think if you're an Alien fan, you will at least find some things here to admire, and I think you can at least appreciate the craft that goes into it. Even if you've never seen an Alien film, this is the kind of movie you can just kind of fall into it. Again, it's a very easy story, but I just question what the point of making a film like this is, just because we didn't have enough incentives to push the creativity. So yes, well, I do feel like this film is a return to form, a return to the roots. I do think we still struggle with like an existential crisis of sorts as to like, what is the Alien franchise supposed to be and where are we supposed to take it in the future? I think we're a little bit stuck. But just as a fun piece of entertainment, if you're not taking it too seriously, oh yeah, I say go see this, pay full price for it, and have fun. And that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.